welcome back to my channel. And you know what today is? It is Spooky Saturday, and my hat is looking like a hot mess, but I love this hat, and yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wear it anyway. It's a little bit hot, but we're gonna wear my Freddy Krueger sweater because I'm really liking that too. So I hope you enjoyed. All right, so today we're going to be talking about one of Detroit's infamous haunted buildings. Have you ever heard of the Whitney? Most of you that live in Michigan have, but for others, you do not know the story. So let me attempt to tell you it. The Whitney is a beautiful mansion. All the splendid houses which have been erected before, which adorn the broad avenue of town woodward, are fairly eclipsed, and the new home enjoys the distinction of being the most pretentious modern home in the state and one of the most elaborate houses in the West. The Detroit Free Press, February 4th, 1894, on the David Whitney Jr. house. The Whitney was built by the successful lumber baron David Whitney Jr. He was one of Michigan's wealthiest citizens and the wealthiest man in Detroit. He was worth more than $15 million at the time of his death in 1900, about $388 million today. David Whitney would have been happy living in a simple home. He often joked that he would be happy living in a log cabin, but Mrs. Whitney was not happy with that idea. A glorious old-fashioned beauty, Mrs. Whitney walked through the Whitney every day while it was being built. She had to make sure everything was absolutely perfect. It is a strange coincidence that Mr. Whitney would actually find his death in the building that he had built. Work in the Whitney had started in the 1890s. It was estimated to have cost $400,000. That's about $9.5 million for today's standards. The Whitney Mansion is 22,000 square feet. It's actually been held up and maintained, and it does look exactly like it did in 1890. It's still very beautiful, and it is one of the oldest and most historic buildings in Detroit as of this day. Upon entering the Whitney, guests would enter into the Grand Hall. It was the largest room in the Whitney. No expenses were spared. Mr. and Mrs. Whitney frequently entertained, as Mrs. Whitney loved to do so. The third floor was the home to the Whitney's art gallery, more guest rooms and small servants' rooms. There was a library, there was a wine cellar, there was a study, and I am not sure how many bedrooms, but I believe there were a lot. David Whitney's first wife, Flora, died in 1882, and 1 year later, he married her sister, Sarah. David Whitney actually died himself at the Whitney in 1900. He died of a heart attack. After Mr. Whitney died in 1900, Sarah continued to live there until 1917. In 1932, the Whitney home was sold to the Wayne County Medical Society. In 1941, the Whitney family gave the house to the Wayne County Medical Society. It means much to us that this house filled with sacred memories is now given to such a glorious organization as the Wayne County Medical Society. That was quoted exactly from Grace Whitney herself. The society remained in the home until 1956, when it was built a more modern facility near the Wayne State University Medical Science Building. When the doctors moved out, they took with them the life-size marble statue of Psyche that sat in the music room, a bust of Venus de Milo, and a bronze bust of Shakespeare. The Visiting Nurse Association had moved its offices to the carriage in 1929. The horse stalls were remodeled into the offices for training with funds provided by Mrs. F.M. Alger. The Nurse Association maintained the house until 1979, when it was sold to entrepreneur Richard Kuhn. Kuhn learned that the mansion would likely be torn down after the Visiting Nurse Association left. He was quoted saying, "It should be preserved, not for personal use, but so that the public can see it and enjoy it," he said. In 1986, they decided to go back and restore the Whitney to its original decadence. Again, in 2007, the Whitney was sold to Bud Leiber. He was a Chrysler executive. Now let's get to the good stuff, because that is the history, and I didn't finish up with the ending. Now, the Whitney is a fine dining restaurant. Now today, the Whitney is now run as a fine dining restaurant. So let's talk about the things that have happened and why it's considered to be one of the most haunted spots in Detroit. It's been said that Mr. Whitney himself has been spotted inside the Whitney, haunting it as he died there of his heart attack. And it has also been said that his first wife, Flora, haunts the building as well. And she avenges the fact that he married his sister after she died. It's said that Flora was actually upset with Sarah because she got to live in the mansion that she wanted to live in. One of the things that the Whitney is known is about the elevator in there. It's said that it runs up and down when nobody actually presses it. And it's also been said that they see people actually inside of it while there is no one inside of it. Also, at this time, they actually have something in the top bar called the Ghost Bar of the Whitney. And it's said that the glasses actually fall off of those shelves and people can hear it. And at night, you can hear children running throughout the Whitney. One of the most famous ghosts of the Whitney is the lady in white with the dark hair. She is said to roam the halls and looking for something. Anytime the lady in white is spotted, you can actually smell a perfume, a light floral scent, and it's actually said before she makes her appearance, you can smell perfume and then you see her. She usually appears right at dusk, so you can see her right before it gets dark. The Whitney was known to have a very big stable, and one of the most saddest and tragic ghosts that are supposed to be said there was an occurrence that happened, I believe in the 1900s. There was a little girl that had actually been trampled by a horse. They said when she was trampled by the horse, the people that found her did not know who she was, and they brought her to the Whitney and tried to revive her and save her, but she died on the spot. And what's most mysterious is no one claimed her and no one ever knew her name. So she was just known as the little girl that was in the stable. So when you are in the area, which is where the stables are, it's said that you can sometimes see a little girl running around. When the Nurse Association moved in, they turned the stables into offices. So where the offices are is actually where the little girl roams, and it's heard that you can hear her giggling. There's also another famous story about one of the men that used to work at the Whitney, and when the Nurse Association was living there, apparently he had an affair with one of the nurses. I guess his wife was struggling with her weight and he did not find her attractive anymore, so he had an affair with one of the nurses, and eventually the man who had the affair with the nurse left with the nurse, and his wife, who had been living with him at the Whitney, was left alone in the building, and everyone knew of the affair, so it said that she hung herself there, and her spirit is still there at the Whitney. And at night you can hear her crying. It's said that you can sometimes look up into the window and you can actually see her staring out. So those are just some of the stories about the Whitney. I actually have never been to the Whitney. I've always seen it. It's such a beautiful place, and it is still known as one of the most like gorgeous mansions right on Woodward. If you're ever in Detroit, I really highly suggest that you go drive by and see the Whitney. I heard that they had actually opened up a absinthe bar as well as the ghost bar, and I think it's really cool that a lot of the absinthe bar has absinthe fountains, and they were designed from the original absinthe fountains that were made in France. So it must be like a very beautiful, decadent thing to do. I'm so glad that you guys have decided to watch Spooky Saturday, and I am excited to announce that I actually bought a new camera, and I am going to be learning how to use it this week. The camera is a little bit complicated, a little more complicated than I thought. I thought I was going to buy the camera and I was going to be like, yay, I can do this. But then I had problems even turning it on, so it's gonna take me a second to actually learn it. I am so excited. I'm gonna do a couple more of these unboxings because they're piling up, so just deal with the different with the really bad video take, and I appreciate that, and just know that better videos are coming. And before I let you go, I just want to show you one thing really quick. My son's girlfriend, Sam, had her sister actually draw me this hedgehog drawing for Mother's Day. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I actually have two beautiful kids, and for Mother's Day, my husband made me pancakes, and for Mother's Day, they gave me this beautiful card, and it's hand painted, and they brought me an ice cream cake. But I love the card. This is my actual hedgehog pattern, and I just wanted to show it to you guys because I thought it was really special, and I hope that all of the mothers out there had a beautiful Mother's Day. And thank you again, and yeah, keep in touch with me because I've got more films coming. And oh, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I would really enjoy that. It would make me very happy. Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye!